live? What's up, Facebook? Here we are. I'm with Jim Potter. What's up, buddy?
Good to meet you.
Thanks for letting us crash your bike shop,
Absolutely.
Vecchio's. This is. If you haven't been to Boulder and you hadn't been to this shop, you gotta come check it out. Jim's gonna give us a little walkthrough inside, but it feels like an old school traditional bike shop, and some cool bikes, some cool gear, cool swag. If you saw my Instagram post last night, you saw some pretty cool bumper stickers. Let's go have a walk around and then we'll start this podcast.
After you.
And our first one, we have actually a live studio audience right here in the shop. What's up, people? So, Jim, just give us like a little. You forgot to lock your door again.
Oh, well, that's okay. We'll do it later.
Give us like a little 2-minute walkthrough of this super cool store. And if you go to what's the website is Vecchio's.
Instagram, Vecchio's Boulder,
Vecchio's Boulder.
Vecchios.com.
Yeah. You'll see a lot of great images on the website. That's where I fell in. Like, I started to look through the website and I saw these images and I thought, okay, we have to do an episode of Stages in that bike shop.
Yeah, I mean, the look of the shop is kind of by accident, but we're in a town full of nostalgia, a town full of stuff. So people bring us things and, hey, would you hang this? Of course I'll hang this. And so we end up with this really great collection of bikes and photographs and signed memorabilia. And it's no rhyme or reason. We just keep adding things until we run out of wall space, which I think we've run out of wall space.
Yeah, you're getting close.
We're getting close. Yeah, we're getting real close. But you can see the whole thing from here. This is the shop.
Let's walk around. We'll do a quick loop.
We're a Waterford and Gunner dealer. Let's plug my brands. We're a Moots dealer. And
Love Moots.
Yeah, wonderful machines.
Love Moots.
Homegrown here in Colorado. Merchandise and so forth up front. The main business here is repair work. The benches in the back are not kind of hidden. They're sort of out in the showroom. Yeah. We don't have a sales staff. We are just us working on bikes, and so people can come in, watch their bike get worked on, grab a beer out of the fridge, shoot the shit about the bike race. Oops, and just kind of relax and just so we're half bike shop, half clubhouse, I think.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
All right, let's do a podcast.
All right.
Y'all ready? That was like the casual informal part. Now we have to somewhat be serious. If that's even possible. JB, I'm just going to pull up some results here. If I can. Hang in there, Facebook. How do we know if it gets dropped? We don't know. Do we know that?
You'll stop seeing all the stream.
I think we're good. Okay. Here we go. Results. What a finish. Where's Jim? Jim, did he get his gears fixed, you think? He didn't sprint in the 11, did he?
Well, he didn't. His legs weren't going very fast. I couldn't
No,
tell.
but earlier on, it looked like he got him when they were...
They
Yeah,
might
I
have
could-
had
I
his
could
wheel,
tell.
but it was still in the small.
If you end up talking to Jim during the podcast, just bring him up. He'll come over here.
Yeah.
We'll put him right here.
Okay. All right. So I need these.
Feel free to do that.
How's this sound?
Sounds great.
Okay. Got my readers. Okay. We ready?
Mm-hmm.
Sure?
Yep.
Okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stages podcast talking about Stage 9. This might be a long podcast because there is a lot to talk about, JB.
It might take you a while to cool down because I
I'm-
know you're going
I'm
to get
not-
all lathered up again.
I'm not. I'm torn actually, because I didn't. Well, what happened is pretty much exactly what I thought would happen. So I'm sort of, as in a weird way, I'm like, okay, of course that happened.
Let me refresh people's memory. As you were previewing the stage yesterday, you were bothered, to say the least, about a couple of things. Mm-hmm. One, the fact that they had this great summit horse category climb at the end, and then a downhill bomb, and then it levels out for a sprint. That bothered you. But then you predicted that, okay, we got some potential wet weather. We saw that. And, you've got all these guys just duking it out on the downhill, leading to a crash and taking some people out.
Well, I think the problem with having a very hard climb, which is a good thing, and then having a downhill and then a flat run into the finish is it just neutralizes the climb. Now, having said that, it turns out the Montes-Chat, there's no way you could have had a finish on top. There was all kinds of drama on the way up. You had what appeared to be Chris Froome having a mechanical, putting his hand up. Fabio Aru literally attacking right underneath his armpit. It was interesting to watch the debate. If you just break down that moment, the debate on TV in 2017 versus 2007 versus 97 versus 87, the etiquette in the group, what people think or thought about that. Interesting that on TV, everybody, all the pundits were like, oh yeah, you should do that. You know, I'm watching that going, I don't know if I'd go right under his armpit, but you know, it didn't work out for them. And then the nature of the sport, as volatile as it is, look who was Chris Froome's teammate coming into the finish. I mean, which we got to get into, because it was, to me, I just cannot understand what Astana was thinking, pulling the defending champion, the favorite, and the yellow jersey to the finish line. And guess what? Give him a little time bonus at the end.
Okay, let's back up, because we're going to end up with how it ended. Let's back up. Things really started shaking up with the Aru attack. So let's talk about the etiquette a bit.
Okay. I would, JB, let me just go back even farther.
Okay.
And I'm just going to fully confess, I was asleep when this happened. I got run over by Bobby Stuckey and everybody at Frosca last night, which thank you to them. But when I got up and caught up with everything through a bunch of live feeds and through Twitter, this race really started on the downhill of the Col de Fiche or Biche, or when AG2R attacks on the downhill. So that's, to me, that sends a couple of messages. Obviously, and if for those of you who don't know, this is their home terrain. The team is based in this area. I don't know if the sponsor's from there, but the team is based there. They know the climbs, they know the descents, they know every corner. Super rare for a team to attack on a downhill. Not to say that that's cool or not cool, but it happened. I think the highlight of that for me is that Chris Froome loses one of his most valuable teammates on that descent, trying to follow that attack when Geraint Thomas crashes out of the Tour de France with a broken collarbone, it looks like. So you have that, which really, I think, kicked off the race for the GC guys. And then you get onto the Col de Chat, which, a climb that I've never done. They just did in the Dauphiné Libéré, 8K at 10%.
Let's expound on that for us a little bit. Having a home climb and descent. Like, I mean, that's, you just know it like the back of your hand. How much does that come into play?
Well, it does come into play, but it shouldn't come into play. If you're a GC rider in any big race, certainly the Tour de France, you should have been there. If you have a climb that's that critical and a downhill that's that critical, you should have been there. You should have done those 3 or 4 times, so you should know them. And when you do them, you don't just do them and like talk to your buddies and hey, let's go. You need to really do them and pay attention and know them as if it's your home course. Because Romain Bardet knows that downhill clearly. AG2R knew the downhill, but all the other guys. Not to say that, and we'll get to Richie Porte, but not to say he didn't know the downhill. But clearly his day changed.
All right, so let's go to the Aru attack then, because everybody, a lot of people love good etiquette in cycling.
Yep.
And if you breach that, if you do something that's just not cool, the whole peloton's going to chew your ass. And it may not have been as vocal as an ass chewing that Aru got, but clearly when he attacked, when Froome had a mechanical, everybody sort of reacts, and a bunch went with him. But then once they realized what just happened, he got a talking to, did he not?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think it's funny to watch it on TV because you can see. Obviously, you saw Dan Martin not only come beside him and hand gestures and hey, what are you doing? Richie Porte was on the wheel and probably refused to pull through because he didn't think that was a proper move. But I just think it's interesting how we're watching watching the opinion change a little bit. You can't argue that after they set up and after it came back, you can't argue that it was boring. I mean, it was boring. It was a controlled tempo on the climb. Now, that can be a couple things. That can be the fact that Team Sky was setting a tempo that was just fast enough to dissuade somebody from attacking. Or you could argue that the course they picked didn't encourage anybody to attack because you knew you had a downhill and then you had 15 kilometers of flat. I mean, I wouldn't
reel it back, which they did.
Yeah, of course they did.
Let's talk about Froome a little bit because,
he's hard to watch.
He is hard to watch.
I can't lie.
He looks
I'm
like
sure is good and strong, and I don't know what he's looking at when he looks down. Man, that's hard to watch.
He looks like he's suffering.
Yeah.
And then.
But I don't think he's suffering. I don't think he's suffering.
And I guess a couple people were testing him and going off the front in front of him a little bit of gaps. He has this slow grind back, so you think, oh man, he's suffering, and he looks kind of sloppy in a way, right? He doesn't look like he's just full of it. And then as they progressed up the climb, then he put the hammer down.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to control this pace. It's amazing.
You know what? I saw a tweet this morning from Michael Rasmussen that actually had a photo of his gearing, and this to me, this blew me away. So I know that the Monteshot or the Goldeshot is steep. Chris Froome, the favorite and the yellow jersey and the defending champion of the Tour de France, his gearing 38 in the front, 32 in the back. That's like mountain bike gearing. I mean, and think about if you'd have rolled up with 38, 32 in 1974, the last time they did this in the Tour de France, they'd have laughed you right out of the peloton. Look at these old bikes in here. They roll up with 53, 39 and straight blocks in the back. They couldn't have seemingly gotten over that climb. And you saw him, he used every bit of 38, 32, which is for the layperson at home, that is a very, very small gear.
By the way, you mentioned it on the Facebook Live feed, but we are at this incredibly cool bike shop, Vecchio's in Boulder. Do you guys even have a cog here, a road cog that's goes to 32? I mean, my gosh, see what that looks like.
I mean, that's JB. That's what like fat, slow old men like you and I ride.
That's a lot of
That's
gears.
not what the.
Do you think he ever even used that? It didn't look like Froome was spinning that fast.
Oh, I think he did. I think
was?
Absolutely. If it's 11% and you want to stay in the saddle, he absolutely used that gear.
All right, we learned a phrase today watching the coverage from Jens. The proper way to say to be a sportsman is square and fair. We learned that from Jens Voigt today. Not fair and square.
And as hard as it is for me to listen to Jens Voigt, I gotta say I do not know how to say fair and square in German, so we almost should stop right there. But yeah, he didn't think it was square and fair what Fabio Aru did.
Let's talk about some of the tactics have been throwing you off. You mentioned Astana doing some pulling towards the end. BMC bothered you yesterday. What's got you confused? And some of your friends too. You know, Hincapie was texting you.
I think those are two separate issues. The tactics of Team BMC yesterday, I didn't understand. And fast forward to today. Wow, that's what.
There it is.
That's a 32. I mean, that's like a small pizza down at Domino's.
Wow.
That's what the yellow jersey was riding? That's unbelievable. I mean, that just shows you this is a different sport. This is a different sport. I think it's great.
You kind of glossed over it a minute ago. You said back in the day, their egos wouldn't have let them show up with that gearing.
You couldn't have showed up with that gearing. You were too much. The straight block was too macho. When I say straight block, I mean, well, back then they had 5 gears, but it would have, single digit jumps from cog to cog. So, but I want to get back to BMC because I didn't understand what they did yesterday. I think a lot of people questioned Nicholas Roach, who is arguably the go-to guy for Richie Porte in the mountains. You saw it today. He was dead to the world. I mean, he had nothing. And so, again, fast forward to the end of the stage, it does not matter now, but you have to go back and wonder. And at the time, I went down to get coffee down at the hotel, so I was listening to the Australian feed. And Robbie McEwen brought up a good point. He said it's either stupid tactics, which it looked to be, or you just have a rider that's kind of on his own program, which is that's not good.
Meaning, Port's was fine going south. Of course,
I mean, Roach just sort of is on his own program. I don't think I've known him a long time. I think he's more professional than that. So I then goes to what they were trying to do, which didn't work, and it wasn't going to work.
Before we get to how it shook out in the flats at the end, let's talk about Porte going down. Like, you called this. You knew this was going to happen to somebody. That crazy descent after doing a very, very steep climb. There were parts of the pavement that were still wet. The rain had stopped, but I mean, it was like dry, wet pavement all the way down.
On a road and a descent like that, you need a full day really, because it's just covered enough and just dark enough in there and moist enough that it won't dry up. And the moisture didn't cause his crash. How he got on the inside, for those who didn't watch, these guys they're going down a very narrow, steep downhill, 50 miles an hour. And so twisty turny, and how he got on the inside was just either an overcorrection or he just got a bad line. But then that just sent him straight across the road, literally into the wall. And it happened so fast you couldn't exactly see, but he hit it hard. And the person who ends up with the worst luck is Dan Martin, who's on his wheel. No way to save that crash. So Dan Martin hits the ground. Meanwhile, all the other favorites are going 50 down the road. You're done. I mean, your day is, you never get back.
Yeah, by the way, if you didn't see it, Martin was able to get back into the race, but, lost touch with that group.
Yeah. Have I mentioned that this was a really stupid stage today? Just the route.
Break it down.
I think for a day that everybody called the Queen stage of the Tour, I totally I think it's to neutralize an epic climb like that, and then to throw in a dangerous downhill, and it wasn't even raining, and then the run into town. I completely disagree. That's not the Queen stage. The Queen stage is the Mont Ventoux. The Queen stage is Alpe d'Huez. That's not the Queen stage.
Let's talk about the crazy downhill. Are there any riders in the peloton who see that finish and go, "Oh, I'm a great descender. This is my day"?
Of course.
So, I mean, or what I can't figure out is why would the course planners, directors put this sort of descent in after the climb? Because it kind of takes the bike racing and turns it into a bit of an X Games element, right?
I added a fifth element yesterday, and that was MotoGP, and you saw it. Mm-hmm. We saw MotoGP. If you're going, these guys on 23 or 25 millimeter tires going 50 miles an hour, that's MotoGP. And Romain Bardet, clearly one of the best descenders in the peloton, took advantage of that. Did get away, didn't last, but I just think it's the possibility for them to come into Chambéry, which was the finish town. Outside of Chambéry, there are 30 great climbs that they could go finish on top of that could accommodate the Tour de France. I disagree with that type of finish. And look, yet again, because of that, the Tour loses one of the big names. So now we've lost. We already know the names we've lost. Now yet, Richie Porte out of the race.
Describe what that's like on a crazy descent like that. I've gone 60 miles an hour on a bike, but I guarantee you it was a very straight, wide, smooth road, right?
You never went 60.
I did go 60, and it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But it was straight. And so we saw Froome move to the front. Do you want to be in the front on that descent, or is that him controlling it, or is it the line of sight? Part of me thinks you may want to see a rider in front of you taking a turn.
You might. I would prefer to be at the front. Clearly, as I just touched on, Dan Martin would have liked to have been at the front. You just never know when something like that happens, and you can't save that. If that happens in front of you, just pick your landing spot. Mm-hmm. You're not going to save it. And so you don't necessarily, if I'm Chris Froome and it's Romain Bardet's home turf, I follow that wheel, or I try to follow that wheel. Look at the end of the descent. They couldn't follow it. He got away. He got 20 seconds.
Okay, so they had the hairy descent. Porte gets taken out. He's done. Hopefully he's okay. He seemed pretty responsive and was talking, which is a good sign. But then they get to the bottom, and they're reeling everybody back, and it's going to be a sprint finish.
Yep.
And you were incredibly frustrated watching so many riders in that group working.
Look, I think part of it makes me laugh, a little bit chuckle, and part of it I just scratch my head. And sure enough, as it's going down, my phone starts lighting up with text messages from George Hincapie going, "What is Astana doing?" So, but reverse this a little bit. 30 minutes or 45 minutes before that, we're all watching this bike race going, "Oh my God, Chris Froome has a mechanical. Fabio Aru attacks him when he has his hand up." You know, which everybody's hating on everybody. 45 minutes later, oh, forget all that. It's all good. It's all forgotten. They're actually riding for him. So while I'm sure Chris Froome was cussing up a storm when Aru made that move, lo and behold, in the last 10K, he's got two teammates, and they're not even wearing his jersey. They're wearing Astana jerseys. I can't for the life of me figure out what they were thinking.
I mean, it seems like it was Froome's to chase down, right, towards the end.
Buddy,
and they could have all just sat there and stayed fresh.
Who cares about Roman Bardet?
Right.
Let him go. Let him get 10 seconds. Let Chris Froome control. He's the yellow jersey. He's the favorite. He's the defending champ. I just sit on and go, "Hey, bud, you're the strongest. Go for it." I mean, and if you do pull through, they are little micro pulls. I mean, these are little. They're
But
fake.
that wasn't happening. They
No,
were
no.
working.
Those are little Thomas Buckler fake pulls. I mean, these are. But no, they had Jacob Fuglsang. As you watched it unfold, it was as if they were sure that Aru was going to win the sprint and get the time bonus, and the exact opposite of that happened. They pulled back Bardet. They didn't win the stage, and Froome gets a time bonus. It's I don't know. I don't get it.
We packed up and left the hotel as quickly as we could to get over here to Vecchio's in Boulder. And did we get a determination on that photo finish?
No, Rigoberto Urán the Colombian won the stage from Cannondale Drapac. And for those of you who watched it at home, I think that there's a couple of interesting things that happened when he had the mechanical. Something happened with his gearing. Not that it's a secret, it's obvious. You can see what happens when he drops back to the neutral support car, and the rest of the guys are just lined out going as hard as they can. He didn't lose any time. So the move is which is standard, and not that anybody crosses a line. That mechanic hangs out of the car, gets literally his entire body out of the window, and is behind Urán, reaching, of course, the derailleurs on the right side of the bike. So he's got to go all the way to the other side of the bike. Well, his torso and his shoulder and his head are actually, pushing Urán a little bit. So he's adjusting the gearing. I don't know that we have an exact answer on what happened to the gearing and if it ultimately got fixed, but for a while he was stuck in his biggest gear. And you had corners, you had a little up and down. I wouldn't want to be stuck in a 5311.
Was that neutral support that fixed him?
That was the Mavic car that
That's a lot of faith in somebody grabbing your derailleur
Oh.
and reaching over you.
No, I wouldn't like any of that.
Jim, do mechanics practice fixing bikes leaning out of a car at 30 miles an hour?
Yeah, they're nuts.
Okay.
They're nuts.
I didn't know if that's
I
part
wonder
of
if
it.
you think somebody's inside the back seat, like holding his legs, so he doesn't
They
go
have to
flying out?
be. They have to be. That was a big boy leaning out of that window fixing a bike.
But it was, I was a little. I mean, this kid Warren Barguil. First of all, if it's true what what they say on TV, Paul Sherwin because he was in this race yesterday, and was a factor today. If it's true that he broke his pelvis, quote unquote, broke his pelvis at the Tour of Romandy. By the way, the Tour of Romandy was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Dude, a broken pelvis 2 months ago, and you're at the front on the hardest stage of the Tour de France, and he nearly wins. You kind of got to want to cheer for that guy.
That's a heck of a story.
Yeah. I've never broke a pelvis, but, anybody here broke a pelvis? No. No, it just doesn't sound good. Like, give me a couple broken collarbones, maybe a broken finger, I'm good. But broken pelvis, and he's for 2 days in a row, he's been at the front of this bike race.
So with what you saw today, who can contest Froome? Do you feel like anybody has a shot at? We thought, or when we saw Aru attack the other day, we were like, wow, he's strong. He just looked snappier than anybody.
Yeah,
but
because
he
it was an
didn't
uphill finish.
But right.
And that's so much better, isn't it? You get to see some dynamic. Can I just say one thing too? The next, if I was in charge of the sport, and I'm not, obviously, but, and this is, I'm getting a little bit off the subject, but if you have these true uphill finishes, which we're going to see at some point in this tour, take off the helmets. I think we should. If you're going 10 miles an hour, take off the helmets, because it's already.
When was the last year you guys were doing that?
2003 or 2004. But
why? Why take off the helmet?
Why? I think well, take off the helmet because I just think it. And again, this is my own personal opinion. Perhaps nobody in the world shares it, but it's just so. If I think back to my generation, if let me just sum this up very easily. If Marco Pantani wore a helmet and sunglasses his entire career, he would not have been the character that he is. Nobody would have known. You wouldn't have known that personality, that look, that face, that brand. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying on a downhill like we saw. By the way, if Richie Porte doesn't have a helmet on today, he may not be alive. But if there's an uphill finish, figure out a way to ditch the helmets and let these guys develop personalities and characters, and let's see their face, and let's see if they're bald, or let's see if they have a pony. If Laurent Fignon had a helmet on every uphill, but you wouldn't even know who Laurent Fignon is. So
and then you see a guy like Sagan in street clothes and that hair,
right?
And it's you just spot it in an instant.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why I thought of it. I've been one to say that.
I thought you were going to bring up more of a advantage reason, or maybe riders don't take as much risks when they're not wearing a helmet. I thought you were going to do something else. You just want to see their faces.
Yeah, if they're going to look, the person who wins the New York City Marathon, they run 12 miles an hour. They don't make them wear helmets. They could trip. They could run into each other. Somebody could run out.
How do you feel about seatbelts? Should we get rid of those too?
No, I don't.
The mechanic clearly wasn't wearing one.
I don't think we should get rid of those. But I don't know. But yes, yeah. You going back to your original point. I mean, you weren't going to see a finish like we saw the other day at the Planche de Belleville because they knew that they had so much bike racing to do. They were worried about the downhill. They knew there was a run-in. Even if they got 20 seconds, even Bardet had 20 seconds, but you can't hold that off if you got 4 or 5 guys behind, especially dumb tactics like Astana pulling you back.
Had that been a summit finish, we would have been seeing really aggressive attack.
Yep.
But then it's all for naught, right?
Right.
Okay.
And it probably would have been Chris Froome winning. I mean, we saw he had, at some point he had enough, right? He's like, all right, this is enough, and he went to the front. And and then you had Quintana in trouble and dropped. Contador dropped. Even Aru swinging back there. Dan Martin swinging. So he's the strongest guy in the bike race.
Okay. So obviously Porte's out of it. Contador looks done. He went down twice.
No more bullets in the pistol. He's terminado, as they say in Spain. Look at you have Fabio Aru at 18 seconds, Roman Bardet at 51 seconds. It's easy. Rigoberto Urán, the guy who won today. Look at this. This guy hasn't done anything since Max, my son, was born, and he's only a minute back. It's easy to look at this and go, oh, the tour. This tour's not over. It's the Tour de France. The third week is always tricky for people. It's complicated. Throw in a couple rest days. We haven't even had a rest day yet. The rest day, which we're going to see tomorrow, is one of the trickiest things to navigate in the Tour de France.
I want to dig into that. What's a rest day like for these guys? I know they get out and ride.
Yep.
There's nothing worse than not spinning your legs on a day like that. So
Yep.
what will they do on a rest day?
Well, the interesting thing is they have to fly to the other side of the country, right? So we're now in the Alps, basically, or we are in the Alps. They got to get all the way over towards the western part of the country. I should know this, but I don't know. I don't know if they fly tonight or if they fly tomorrow morning. It's an interesting question. If I were a rider, I'd rather just suck it up and fly tonight. Just get there, have dinner, and then have an entire day to use as a rest. Even if I had to skip massage, skip any kind of recovery, I'd rather just get there. So I don't know if they fly tonight or tomorrow. Let's assume they fly tonight. Tomorrow is you definitely. Actually, there's 2 schools of thought. You could have the school of thought where either we're going to take it very easy, almost do nothing, or a very short, easy ride, or you go out and ride hard. I was always of the belief, for every tour, my teammates absolutely hated me. On a rest day, I hammered their ass so hard. I went and found hills.
Why?
Because a body at rest stays at rest. If their body's in the mode of the Tour de France.
Is it like a muscle memory thing?
I just think you got
Or a
not that you
mindset
have
thing.
not that you have to do 5 hours, but we're going to do 2 hours, and it's not going to be easy. And they hated me for it, but well, whatever. I thought it worked.
This is a dumb question. Do all of them fly on the same plane?
Yeah.
So you're in street clothes with your
Yeah.
opponents.
Yeah.
On a plane.
They have 2 planes. At least in the day they had 2
Do
planes.
they
So
serve cocktails?
No, and that's a short flight. I mean, they got to just hop across. It'll be a 45-minute flight, but everybody, the ASO, the owner of the tour, they control. They hand you your.
So
your
what's that
boarding
like?
pass.
What's that like when you're sitting there on a plane? Do you just socialize with? Are people just exhausted? It's late. You just crash on a plane. Are you talking tactics? Are you talking to other teams and making deals?
No,
Nothing.
No, they're all.
It's
in-
just
no.
tight-lipped.
Yeah, it's everybody sticks. I suspect everybody sticks to themselves, listens to music, maybe reads something. It's
Take your mind off of it a little bit.
Yeah. So the thing about the rest day, this one's interesting because we go straight into what most of these guys are going to consider to be easy days. So that's easier for them. A lot of times you'll have a rest day and followed up by a very difficult day. I mean, the worst scenario you could ever ask for is a rest day, followed up by a short, hard day. So those are the stages where, and we'll get into it when we talk about rest day number 2, but you have to stay sharp on the rest day. And you see it all. You see guys come out of, and as much as I love this kid, he cannot navigate the rest day. TJ Van Garderen, I talk to him all the time, like, dude, what are you doing on the rest days? You completely suck the day after. Like and it's just there's a real science to it, and you gotta work different, work with different ideas, but you gotta navigate the rest day.
Okay. Again, I'm going to come back to it. I mean, do you have your eye on anybody else as being able to tackle Froome at this point, or does he just really have this race under control?
He definitely has the race under control. He has the best team.
I mean, is he going to have to crack one day for this to change?
Oh yeah, they got to wait for him to make a mistake,
Or force a mistake?
or he cracks, or this is. I mean, we've seen it. This sport is, anything can happen at any time. I mean, not that you would wish a poorly timed flat tire or a crash on anybody, but that can happen. And when that happens, then clearly now this sport, or people seem to excuse others taking advantage of people's bad luck. But now it's his bike race to lose, and he looks good. Actually, doesn't. Truth be told, it doesn't look good.
He doesn't. It's not pretty, but he gets it done.
And I'm not like when he did the bike change. It's like, whose bike is he on? Like, is he on Heniau's bike? Like, his seat's too low, and it's crazy that works. And I love. Hey, more power to him.
Okay. Do you want to tackle some comments?
Let's do it.
All right, let me do that.
You
real
do
quick.
that every day. So
I know. That was great.
it is good.
I loved the, if you haven't heard yesterday's podcast, anybody, go back and listen to Stage 8. There's a great story about Jan Ulrich and etiquette, and that came into play today. Just etiquette in the sport. And I think that's what so many people love about it.
Mm-hmm.
But really, really good story that you haven't heard. Download that Stage 8 podcast. It's so worth it. Heather writes, the Stages podcast with Lance Armstrong is fantastic. Stage 8 discussion about cramping and stabbing a leg was very enjoyable.
Oh, I thought she was going to call BS on it.
No. Michael writes, hey Lance, when are you coming back to the Czech Republic? When were you there last?
I think I was in Prague once for a post-tour criterium. This is a cool thing to talk about. So these guys who win the tour, they have what they call criteriums. They look like real bike races. They feel and sound and smell like real bike races. They're not real bike races.
Okay.
They're more exhibitions. So I did a post-tour crit in Prague. Jeez, 2005, I think. But they're very, very popular in Belgium and Holland. Whoever wins the tour, whoever wins the polka dot jersey, whoever wins the green jersey, you actually wear that jersey. I mean, the tour is long done and long over and long gone. You actually wear that jersey in these post-race crits, and they wall off the city and they charge people to come into the city and watch the thing. Riders get paid a little bit of money, but it's a huge part of their late. They start at 10 or 11 at night.
It's more of an exhibition kind of thing.
That's a
show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but if you're there, it's like a little like wrestling,
Okay.
like WWE.
Really?
Not like Olympic wrestling. Not like Roman Greco wrestling or whatever it's called.
Okay.
It's a little like The Rock versus Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Okay. Maybe you'll know the answer to this. You may not. But any of you who've been watching the tour, someone wrote in and asked, "What's with all the human clocks on the sides of the road?"
That's the new trend. That's let's find a field. Let's lay out some hay bales for the hours of the day, and it's got them on TV.
Okay. Anything to get on TV, right?
Anything.
On that note, we saw some more course interference, which you can't help but talk about. That was a narrow road. It was already a narrow road, and then you see all the campers lined up on one side. You see people laying on the street to get the photo. And what's with the smoke bombs?
Yeah, that's just part of it. And I think when you're in the race, at least based on my recollection, you don't worry. Those people, 99.9% of the time, they get out of the way. You do see times where they don't get out of the way, and it's not unheard of. Let's not forget Eddie Merckx was once famously punched in the ribs by a fan of another rider and ended his tour. So they have that access. If they want to get there and do that, they could do pretty much whatever they want. But that's the worst scenario you have is they boo or they hiss or they throw water on you or even throw other things on you.
Mm-hmm.
Say mean things.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You probably, the riders are so in the zone and focused, it's almost got to be like tunnel vision.
Yeah,
Going
I was
through that
impressed.
crowd.
I will say, as much as I didn't dig the route today, the crowds on the final climb were thick. That's good to see for cycling.
Dave King writes, Lance, loving the podcast. Who are you seeing as up and coming American riders? Anybody to watch for? Anybody you've run into passing through Austin or anything?
Well, we have. I tell you what, Nate Brown has been right. He's already on the scene, but he's having a great tour. I've talked about this a lot. I think the kids on Axel Merckx's development team, called Action, spelled AXEON, are great kids. This young kid, Adrian Costa, who's actually one of his parents is French, one of them is American, is an amazing talent. There's this other kid, I'll probably butcher his first, it's either Nelson or Nielsen Prowlis, big talent. So he's developing, in my opinion, the best up and coming talent.
Very good, very good. Let's let people know about the store. They're digging it.
Yep.
If you go to We Do Shop, WEDU Shop, you can pick up some of the new gear. And stagespodcast.com, if you want to send anyone the URL, the RSS feed to be getting the podcast, go back and listen to some of the things that you're really, really passionate about. I think stage 3, 5, yesterday was a great one where you're really teeing off on some stuff. And I'm going to, in a good way.
I hope
you're shedding some light on it. Stuff that the average viewer that we watch, it's stuff that we don't understand that's even going on.
Yeah, like the rest day. I think that's how you get to the rest. It's just little insights like that.
Would you rather not have a rest day?
I'd rather not have a rest day.
Really?
I'd rather not.
What about now doing a podcast? Are you looking forward to a rest day?
You know what? This podcast has really affected my life, and I'm ready for it to be done. I'm loving it, and we're having fun. But I'm a morning person, and I like to ride. I like to get up early and have my coffee and do all this and be on the bike by the fact that I have to go at 11 o'clock. It's like I just can't. I'm just blocked from doing that. And then we're here in Boulder today. It's going to be like 2 million degrees. I'm just going to go lay around the pool or something.
Well, thanks for everybody.
What about the room? Maybe the room has a question or two. Should we throw it?
Do you want to try that? Let's do it.
Well, you'll have to repeat it because they
No.
can't.
Right. Well, they can come. If anyone has a question,
I'll let you
make your
pick.
way towards me. Just come over here to the side of the cashier here at Vecchio's in Boulder. Shop, definitely worth checking out. Come on over here. I'm going to swing this mic over. What's your name?
Kelvin.
Kelvin, go ahead.
Holland, hi. Islands.
How you been?
I just found out that Demar got out of time today.
So this was okay. You're my hero. I love Holland. I love you
my
and
hero
your
as well. So
Oh, thank you. So this is a big story. This is a big. We talked about this yesterday. I said the way this stage starts, immediately going uphill. I said yesterday, I don't want to seem like I'm patting myself on the back all the time. I said Andre Demar is going to be dropped immediately. Now, I speculated on how he survived yesterday. The fact that he missed it, was he the only one who missed the time cut?
No, like 3 others.
Three
Yeah.
others. So here you have the big French sprinter, a contender for the green jersey, out of the race. I mean, to me, if I look at that profile, there's no way he survives this stage. And Dankovel for coming up here and confirming my
Yeah.
prediction.
Because at the same time we saw Matthews like being Sagan-like, getting in the breakaway,
Yep.
getting the points for the green jersey.
Yep.
Do you think he will grab it now, or is it just Kittle?
I think there's enough flat stages and keep in mind, winning a stage is so much more valuable than the intermediate sprints. And even back in the day, and I just learned this as I started to dig back into cycling, but there's only one intermediate sprint every day. Back in the day, you'd have 2 or 3. And so if you can just skip the intermediate sprints, put all your eggs in the basket of trying to win stages, I think you get enough, all the way to Paris, by the way. I think you get enough points to easily win it. But that is huge news. That's huge news. Wow. Thanks for
Very good.
sharing
This
that.
guy did a good job.
Yes.
He could be our colored man in the field. Come on up here. What's your name?
Rolo.
Rollo, what's your question?
My question is, you mentioned that Ostana should not have pulled at the end. Do you think that they were thinking that Aru should be protecting his second place finish? Because if they did not chase and Bardet got ahead and won by 30 seconds plus got the 10-second bonus,
Sure.
then he potentially be in first or second.
Right. They were riding like Fabio Aru can win the Tour de France. That's the way they were riding. But I don't think they needed to do that. And it came back to bite them. I think even let Bardet get some, you have to, it's a delicate balance. You have to take some chances, take some risks. Let him get 20 seconds. Put pressure on Chris Froome. It's his bike race to lose. Let him pull. And if you're going to pull, buddy, do some fake pulls. Like, oh, I'm on the limit, man. I'm sorry, I can't pull. Get off the front. Make him work. He was sitting there going, I love the Kazakhs. Look at them working for me. I don't get it. and then the time bonus.
Very good. Make your way over here. Make your way over here if you have a question. As an amateur racer, there are many, many ways to get off the front. Drop water bottle. I'll give you some of my favorites. Drop water bottle. Foot coming out of the clips is a good one.
Fake a cramp.
Fake cramp.
I'm sorry, but I'm cramping.
Turn your head and pretend to be counting riders like someone got dropped. These are all great ways to get off the front.
Listen,
if you need them.
you got to act a little bit. I mean, this is you guys know that I've acted plenty in my day, but you got to fake it a little bit.
Think you're hurting, so you can't be on the front. What's your name?
Jack Ross. Lance, just talking about rest days and recovery. Walk us through how much your body's actually changing from day one to that first rest day, the second rest day, then at the end. Are you feeling strong, or is it just decomposing, or?
Well, first of all, you're losing weight. You definitely.
Like how much?
A guy like, well, it depends. I mean, some people come in on the heavy side and they know they can lose weight, so they'll lose more. A guy like Chris Froome comes in as skinny as he possibly can be. You can't do that sport and that bike race without losing weight. But yeah, you're tired, especially after yesterday was a very, very difficult day. And today, obviously, a very difficult day. So they are physically tired.
Very good. Yeah. Anyone else? You guys are good. This is great. You go to another city, they'd be asking you if you've ever met a Kardashian. These Boulder people are asking very, very technical questions.
Boulder, dude. I was down at Vecchia's, dude. Saw Jim. He's working on my derailleur. This is not a Taylor Finney impersonation. Just so you know, I've been doing Boulder Dude for a long time. I am marrying a Colorado Boulder girl, Anna, who's here, is a buff. She went here. She's had to live with me being Boulder Dude for a decade. Ted, flatter. Do you rock climb, JB? Ted, let's go do some repeats up NCAR, dude.
Speaking of rest day, Mike and Jim were very kind to open up the shop for us.
On their rest day.
On their rest day. Really cool guys, worth checking out online. I love these tees behind you with the car and the bike on the roof.
And the bumper stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very vocal bumper stickers that every cyclist should have. Check out their online store.
Jim, thank you.
Good dudes. All right, we'll be back with new coverage on Tuesday from Austin.
From Austin, Texas.
If you want to ever do a complicated project, connect with Lance Armstrong. It's like, hey, do you want to do a podcast with
No,
me? Sure.
my life, JB, is so simple you wouldn't believe it. It's just clean and efficient.
Let me give people an idea. Yeah, do you want to do this podcast? Sure, let's do it. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be in Aspen. Oh, by the way, in about the middle of it, we need to come back to Austin. Oh, by the way, we're going to go see the Avett Brothers.
We are going to go see the Avett Brothers tonight. I
Who
can't wait.
you had on your Forward podcast,
Yes.
which is definitely worth checking out.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you, in 48 hours.
Peace. I like to give the last word.
All right.